This is Robin Johnson of Great Mystery, and I have the pleasure of talking now with Dr. Jack Pransky. Jack is founder and director of the Center for Inside Out Understanding and one of the most widely respected longtime three principles practitioners. He is the author of 9 books, including a prevention curriculum for middle school students, and in 2001 his book Modello received the Martin Luther King Storytellers Award for the book Best Exemplifying King's Vision of the Beloved Community. Welcome, Jack.
It's wonderful to be here.
So, tell us about the 3 principles, what they are, and how these principles developed.
Whoa. Talk about jumping right in. Well, first, I want to say that, there's a lot of people out there who know a bunch about spirituality. And I would say that if you were to take everything that you know about spirituality in terms of how it affects us as human beings and put it in a big cauldron and boil it down and boil it down and boil it down and get to its essence, you would come up with these 3 principles. And by principle, I mean, not something like principles of effective programs or something like that, but I mean what the root of the word really is, which is something like fundamental truth. Like these 3 principles are really spiritual facts. And whether or not, so it's kind of like gravity. Whether or not people know that gravity exists, they're still held to the earth. So these principles are operating in us, around us, through us. They are who we are, whether or not we know of their existence. So with that said, basically we're talking about universal mind, universal consciousness, and universal thought. And those are the 3 principles. And, the obvious question is, so what? Well, the fact is that every experience that we have, every feeling that we have, every perception that we have, it's all as a result of how we use these 3 principles. Like we could have no experience that is not the 3 principles in action in our lives. And so when people catch on to this, things change. Now you asked where they came from. You said, how did they develop? Well, they didn't develop. They were, I was going to say discovered, but they were uncovered. Because they exist. So this fellow named Sidney Banks, who was an ordinary laborer going about his business on Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, in Canada, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, he gets an enlightenment experience, you could say. And he sees how these 3 principles operate in his and everybody else's life. And he got the urge, instead of keeping it to himself, he saw how this could be helpful to humanity. And he started talking to people, and it just grew from little by little, from person to person, one person at a time, and it just ripples out and it spreads, and that's basically what happened. Uh-huh. And I was one of those ripples.
How would you, what has been your experience, your personal experience with the 3 principles, and also I know you're a successful coach at this, so maybe from some of the people you've worked with also. What can you share?
Well, for myself personally, And you know, you mentioned the book Modello before, and what happened was I was basically just playing investigative reporter. I was trying to find out. This fellow named Roger Mills took the three principles into this low-income inner-city housing project near Miami, Florida, and the place was completely turned around. And my profession is prevention of problem behavior, so I was very, very curious about what made this work. And I ended up writing a book about it, so I went down there and tried to find out what it was that happened to these people, because Roger Mills did everything backwards. And not only did I see the most amazing changes in people's lives that I had ever seen before, and I even wrote a book about prevention. I hadn't seen results like this. Basically, I mean, I found my life starting to change, and I wasn't even looking for it. I mean, I was doing pretty well, but all of a sudden, I was operating with much less stress in my life. My relationships got better. My relationships with my kids got better. I was more effective. And I'm thinking, this isn't supposed to be happening to me. I wasn't looking for this. So, you know, that was the first thing. And then when I attempted feebly to help other people understand it, I started becoming more effective than I ever had been before. So people's lives started changing around me. And I'm thinking, whoa. And you know, once you see this, you just can't go back. And this was such a wrench. It was like everything we all operate, we think from the outside in. Like we think the outside world really affects us. Like what happens out there, the circumstances of our life, you know, the situations we find ourselves in, other people who do things to us. We think that is what creates our experience. But really, it's our own thinking entering our consciousness with all the power of universal mind behind it that gives us our experience. And when people realize that it's an inside-out job instead of an outside-in job, and I don't mean just saying that because intellectually it doesn't mean anything, but when people truly see from inside themselves how they are the creators, we are the creators of our own life. Like we create our life moment to moment with our thinking, and consciousness makes whatever we think look real. So it brings it through the senses. It gives us a real experience of our thinking, which we think is reality, but it isn't. It's an illusion. It's our creation of illusion.
Wow. So we have the power to move through the illusion then.
That's true. We have that very well put. We have the power to see through the illusion. And what a power that is.
Yeah, and have a different experience in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, once we see through the illusion, it's like everything's up for grabs.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I was talking with someone who had called me up, and she was having a very difficult relationship with her husband. And she said her husband is a very nice man, but when the time comes for them to go to bed together or have any kind of sexual experience, she feels absolutely repulsed. And she knows that she needs to leave this relationship because she cannot be in it anymore. So I said, well, why don't you leave? And she said, because I don't know that, I don't think I can make it on my own. I have never been on my own, and I don't think I can make it. Well, that is an example of how we create what we call reality for ourselves that isn't. The fact is, she has no idea whether she can make it on her own. And my guess is she would be able to make it on her own. Because there's another aspect of the three principles that is probably even more important than us creating our own reality, and that is, if our consciousness were pure, meaning uncontaminated by any thinking, we would experience the essence of ourselves. And the essence of ourselves is pure peace of mind, pure love, pure wisdom. You know, it's like we're the pure incubator for when our mind clears, for thoughts of wisdom to come up from the blue. And we get insights that are based upon wisdom that's really not coming from us, it's coming through us. That would be enough to guide her through life. But the problem is, we can't hear it. It's like wisdom is always talking to us. It's kind of like a soft acoustic guitar playing in the background, but our typical thinking is like a heavy metal band, and so it's like that's going on. We can't hear the soft acoustic guitar in the background, but as soon as our thinking shuts off, even for a second, all of a sudden we can hear the soft guitar, which is our wisdom. But only when our head clears can we hear.
And it seems that so much of that chatter, that like heavy metal noise, is comes from a place of insecurity, and that we've somehow accumulated from the culture.
Well, actually, we accumulated from our thinking about the culture, or our thinking about all of those other things. It's like there's nothing about fear that's built into the outside world. It's all how we construct it for ourselves with our own thinking. So what we don't realize is we make up fear. We don't do this on purpose, but for some reason, we seem to do it a lot. And we allow, it's almost like we give up our power to fear, but really, we've taken the power to create fear, and we've just kind of used it in a way that does not serve us well.
Yeah. Like as a misguided attempt at being responsible. Like if I worry about this enough, I'm doing something.
There's a lot of people that come up with these crazy things.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there's an element, it seems like in the world it's getting more and more stressful, with both in terms of personally and kind of globally, with the climate change and the environment and wars and craziness. So something like the three principles could be really effective in helping to shift.
Yeah, because it's not like, it looks like there's stress out there. It looks like the more craziness there is out there, that means, like, of course we're going to be more stressed. But that's not really the way it is. It's like we are the ones who create stress. It's almost like we use all the craziness that's going on out there as an excuse to be stressed. Because stress is just created in our own mind. It's our own thinking. And I get into stress from time to time, but every once in a while I will wake up to the fact that, I've gone down the rabbit hole here, and it's really, I know it's just my thinking, and as soon as I know that, it's like my consciousness shifts. I rise to a higher level of consciousness, and therefore that stress doesn't have the grip on me that it did before.
How are you working? I understand you're working in communities using the three principles. Can you talk about that?
There are people all across the world now who are using the three principles in communities. I am not doing it myself at the present time, but like, for example, there's a woman in Birmingham, United Kingdom, who has taken this into prisons and is teaching the inmates about the three principles, and their lives are changing. And even though it looks like it's the bars of the prison that are keeping them stuck, really it's the prison that they had constructed with their own minds. It's their own prison bars, and some of them are feeling more free in prison now than they ever felt when they were out on the streets and trapped by their own thinking that they considered to be reality. I mean, one of the most amazing things to me is that all of this horror, this destruction that is happening in the world right now, is all because people are taking their reality as if it is reality, and they have to act out of it. And if people realize that it's not reality at all, it's just what they've come up with in their minds using their creative gift of the power of thought, and consciousness makes it real. It makes it look and feel and smell and taste and sound real. So we would swear to it. But it's tricking us. It's tricking us. And it's tricking them so badly, big time, that they are killing other innocent people. Because they see reality when they, and if they saw illusion, their own creation of illusion, they wouldn't be trapped by it. So this is, I consider this hope for the world. But it seems to happen like one person at a time. Yeah. Slowly, gradually.
Seems like that's how it goes.
Yeah, but I mean, when The Secret came out a few years ago, came out with a big splash. And like a whole bunch of people like glommed onto it. Well, where is it now? It's like the three principles is totally different because it just seems to take hold solidly in someone, like one person at a time. And then the funny thing happens when people catch on to the three principles is they want to share it with other people because it's helped them so much in their lives. And so they start attempting to help other people with it. And then some of those other people get touched and grabbed, then they want to share it with other people. And, that's kind of how it has seemed to work over the years. Since Sid Banks had his monster experience in the early 70s, now there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are seeing this for themselves and helping other people with it.
Wonderful.
And still it's the best kept secret in both spirituality and psychology. And prevention.
So, speaking about prevention, I know in 2004 you won the Vermont Prevention Pioneers Award for your instrumental work in creating the first state law in Vermont requiring state agencies to plan for and conduct prevention practices. And you've worked in developing national prevention policy. How is your work with the three principles in prevention?
Well, that was, those two things were before I found the three principles.
Ah.
And, trying to change policy is an outside-in kind of thing because, you're thinking, well, these policies are destructive to a lot of people and you want them to change. Mm-hmm. Like when all the focus is on locking people up, for example, instead of preventing crime and delinquency in the first place, mm-hmm. You want to create a policy to get people focused more on the preventive end of things. Mm-hmm. Now, that's all well and good, but what I noticed afterwards is that you can change all the policies in the world. You can create the best programs that you can in the name of prevention in the world. But if people's thinking doesn't change, they do not change. Mm-hmm. And if they are not connected to their wisdom, they are still going to commit crimes or get involved heavily into alcohol and drugs or commit abuse, with children or sexual or other things, or become involved in domestic violence, or become pregnant as teenagers, or become suicidal, all those things that we want to prevent. That if people, no matter what is done in the name of prevention, it takes a shift in someone's thinking in order to change. Mm-hmm. People, once I realized that, I thought, whoa, that's like everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to a Freudian psychologist, and if you have an insight of a big enough magnitude, you're going to change, and if you don't, you won't. Mm-hmm. You can go to the three principles practitioner, and if you have an insight of enough magnitude, you're going to change. Mm-hmm. It just so happens, I think, that has a tendency to happen more.
Yeah. I know, like back in the 70s, so many of the movements, the environmental movements and equal rights movements for gender equality or whatever, were the outside in. And I think it felt, it felt to me like, changing one person at a time, it'll never happen. It's just too slow. Right. We've got to do something. We've got to make this happen. We've got to change the policies. We've got to, but really, it is one person at a time, and it's changing so that it's real. When the consciousness changes, then it becomes real.
Right. And I'm all for people changing policies and mm-hmm. creating healthy conditions out of the environment instead of unhealthy conditions. Mm-hmm. I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. But I do know that if we really want fundamental change, mm-hmm. it happens one person at a time, whether mm-hmm. people like it or not. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's that shift. That shift has to happen within someone. And because thinking, one of the qualities of thought is that it changes. Mm-hmm. And it changes on its own. So we don't have to go out of our way to try to change our thinking. That's one of the misnomers, in the three principles world, is that we have to try to change our thinking. Mm-hmm. But that's not what it is. It's like when our thinking changes, our experience changes. And we can see that. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier.
More joyful.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a retreat coming up in Greece in the beginning of June. I love the title of it, Breaking Free of the Known, Beyond Our Cutting Edge into Deeper Realms of the Three Principles. It feels like a wonderful opportunity for people to experience the power of this work. Can you talk a bit about the retreat?
Yeah, I'm real excited about it because last year, I think it was, I ran a retreat like this for the first time. I was absolutely, and so I didn't know what I was doing, really. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I saw more changes happen in people's lives than I've ever seen in a retreat before, or in any kind of a training before. It shocked me. And I think it's because of the, it's hard to put my finger on it, but the atmosphere that gets created, it is one of peace and love, and one where insights from wisdom tend to rise to the surface. And it was a beautiful thing. And then I did it in Birmingham in the UK. I would call it a little different, but it was basically the same thing. And I even got more incredible results then. The percentage of people in that room that ended up seeing their lives change in front of their eyes was astonishing. And those are the only 2 times I've ever done it. And I'm so excited about doing it again, and especially in Greece, where I fell in love with that place. I really did. I fell in love with it. It's so beautiful there.
It must create a nice backdrop for this work, for people to open up to this.
Yeah, it's like the external environment aligns with the internal environment and just creates it's almost like a perfect setting for it to happen. So I was originally doing this for people who already had 3 principles understanding, to take them deeper. But I really have come to the conclusion that this could be for anyone. You know, anybody who has geared their lives in any kind of a spiritual way. We all don't realize that even that we get into what we know or what we think we know. And what happens is, inadvertently, that becomes a limit to what we could know. You know, it's just like I'm sitting in my house right now, and there's a ceiling above my head. And that ceiling, which is what I know, is a limit to the sky. You know, it's like it's keeping me from seeing the sky. It's like this is what we inadvertently do to ourselves all the time. Is we I guess one example is, you know, whatever we think God is, for example, or universal mind, whatever we think God is automatically limiting. Like it becomes what we know, and therefore we stop being open inadvertently to what we could see beyond that about God. And it's the same thing with everything. You know, we think we know what consciousness means, and as soon as we know it, we limit ourselves, because consciousness is way, 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 way more vast than that. You know, we think we know what thought is, and thought is way, 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 way more vast than that. And so in this retreat, we tend to open ourselves up to those new possibilities of seeing by taking the limits off. And it's a wonderful thing when people do this all together.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great feeling that happens in the room. It's a wonderful thing. I'm so looking forward to it.
Oh, beautiful. Well, who knows? Your description is so lovely. I might have to join you.
That would be wonderful.
So, for
all listeners out there.
yes. And I know besides this retreat, you also have something coming up in England in May, and you do programs all over, actually, or many places, I should say, in southern Spain. And
yeah, I mean, I'm just about to go to southern Spain, and or at least on the Mediterranean coast,
Mhm.
sort of mid-southern Spain, and I'm going to be away for 2 months, and it's going to culminate at that retreat in Greece. So I'm going up to the UK, excuse me, to Scotland, and then to Denmark, and then to Sweden, and then back down to Greece. And so it should be a fun time if I don't drive myself right into the ground.
well, if people would like to find out more about your work, I know you've got a wonderful website, also where your books are available, which is insideoutunderstanding.com.
Yes.
So, thank you so much.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and it's wonderful to talk with people who have not been involved with the three principles, but are pointed in the same kind of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that the three principles just tends to crystallize it all for people. So that's the beauty.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it puts it in a tangible framework in a way.
Yes, it's something we can actually grab onto that has practical application for our lives instead of just being ethereal,
Ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. It's a real pleasure.